Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the International Workshop on Research Methodology and Writing Skills, jointly organized by Lavender Literary Club, Cape Comorin Trust, Malaysian Industrial Relation, and Human Resource Associations Malaysia. So today we have got three speakers for us, and the first speaker is Dr. J Raj Vijay Kumaran, Faculty of Earth Science, University Malaysia Kelantan. His fields of research include biodiversity, molecular ecology, evolution, morphometrics, and mammalogy. He has completed BSc in Animal Resource Science and Management in the University Malaysia Sarawak in the year 2004 and his MSc in Qualitative Statistics and Molecular Genetics, and he has also completed his doctorate in mammalogy in the University Sains, Malaysia. He has also published 16 journals in Scopus, 10 in Google Indexed, and 7 in ISI. He has also received many rewards. We are very happy to have you among us, sir. The session is yours, sir.
Thank you for the kind introduction, and welcome everyone to my talk. I see there's a lot of people here, and I think some of them I remember last year talk they are around. I think so. But then yeah, I think I won't waste too much time lah. Okay, I'll just start with the talk today. So let's see. I go to presentation mode. Screen. See. Give a minute. Okay. So today we're going to talk about research integrity, ethics and anti-plagiarism rules lah. So essentially, you will learn some of this, and I've been in the academia for quite a while already. So and also being as a editor in a Scopus journal and a local magazine. So I got kind of have quite a number of experience handling this kind of issues. So of course, the issue of research integrity is more wide ranging than what I cover here. But hopefully everybody can get a glimpse of what's happening, so that they can guide you guys for future research and how you conduct yourselves in the academia world. So what is academic obligations? So why must we conduct our research responsibly? And this is a fundamental question that we always have to ask ourselves. Most scientists, social scientists and scientists, their work, our work is actually supported by public funding. So of course, this is one thing that we need to take note of when we are spending money that is given by the public. We must, have some form of obligation or some responsibility to the people that we are, that have funded us. So, if we are getting data from the public, their privacy is also of concern. So, of course, our research must be conducted in such a manner that it protects their what we say privacy. So we also must ensure that our work is conducted responsibly, because we are also responsible to our funding institutions for giving us the resource, to our collaborators also, because whenever we do our work, our collaborator might refer to our research. So like for example, here you see I got a lot of collaborators from many universities throughout the country, and whenever I publish something, okay, they will read and they will cite the work. So this is one thing that we need to, whenever we do work, especially in research and publication, the work will be cited. People will refer to our work. So this is one thing that we must be responsible Okay, and of course we are employed by the research institution or the universities or any other agencies. We must be responsible to our organization. But why do people do academic wrongdoings? Well, that's the biggest question. Because of course everybody wants to do their work professionally and what we say with full of integrity. But sometimes there are certain situations that may cause certain things to happen. So in the academia, okay, there are quite a number of reasons why people do academic wrongdoings. For example, one is acceptable practice in the institution. How we work in an institution and how we conduct ourselves in our workplace is highly influenced by the workplace practice itself. So sometimes there are institutions that accept certain things that probably not fully having full integrity. So that is one thing that may happen. Like it's an acceptable practice in the institution. Sometimes accidentally we do such a thing. We may not be aware of the rules, or we may not be aware of the do's and don'ts, and we accidentally made this mistake. Okay. There are also in many instances, because of time or because of desperate situations, we take shortcuts. So whenever we take shortcuts, quite a high possibility that we may conduct academic wrongdoings. So this is one thing that we want to avoid. So there's also situations where research that been done by other people, okay, and their methods are used in a more, people will learn from their methods and they'll use it. So sometimes maybe their work has some wrongdoing. It becomes your issue also because you followed their method. So that is one situation that may happen. There are also some areas, research areas, the conduct is grey. We are not sure whether it's right or wrong. So that may be a possibility where it causes this situation, academic wrongdoing. Sometimes people also they know that they are wrong, but they are deceiving themselves. Okay, and they may have other psychological tendencies. So these are some of the possible factors. There's also other external factors. We all know, okay, we all know currently the race to publish, okay, is high competition. Okay, so it's a publish or perish race. And people will do anything to win a race, even if you are not in the race itself. Okay, so there is such a situation now. Okay, this is an external factor. There's also the pressure to maintain your job, your annual appraisal. Then this may cause people to do certain wrongdoings. There are also situations where we overpromise certain or we blow up certain facts to actually secure grants. So that's one example. Securing grants. For securing grants, we do some wrongdoing. Sometimes we also want to be the first to discover, and this may lead us to do certain academic wrongdoings. Take note, you may be the kindest person, but you may still possibly conduct academic wrongdoings. Does not mean you are a nice person, you won't do that. There is possibility. Okay, out of as I said, this example of these pressures. So these are the common points to consider if you are normally what happens in research wrongdoings. So for first is research misconduct. Example, for these are the 3 points of falsification, fabrication, plagiarism. There's also collaboration issues. does not mean every research collaboration is smooth and easy. It may create issues in terms of collaboration and create issues during the collaborative work. Okay, some of the points normally been raised is the authorship, data ownership, and management. During peer review, so as a person that you, as a scientist, normally you do get invitation to review other people's manuscript. And there are possibility of a situation where you may conduct certain wrongdoings out of the the chance that you get. There is also conflict of interest or obligation that may arise. Okay, funding is also another point, and animal and human subject research. So these are the two. If we are dealing with animal or we are dealing with humans, the possibility of conducting research wrongdoings is actually quite high. If we don't know the rules or we don't know the things that we need to consider. So let's go to the first point, research misconduct. So there are three types. First is plagiarism. Okay, it's basically very simple. You take other people's idea, process, results, or word without giving appropriate credit. The appropriate credit that we normally refer to is actually the citation. Okay. The other type of research misconduct is fabrication. So if you essentially is just you're making up data that don't be that data or results that are not from your research experiment, okay, or stating something that did not happen, okay, from to become as a data, okay. Falsification is manipulating research material, equipment, or process, or changing or omitting data or results such that that research is not accurately represented in the research record. So meaning you manipulate the data, okay, to fit your outcome. That may be possible. That is quite common actually. And even we have seen papers published in Science and Nature have been retracted because of falsification of data. So for example, this is one example, image and photo editing manipulation. So for example, you increase, okay, the contrast of certain pictures, okay, so that it looks better, okay, or and then one you increase the contrast, the other one you didn't. So you do some form of manipulation, but you didn't consistently do for the other one. So this is a form of actually what we call a manipulation. Okay. So the other one is data falsification. You falsify data. For example, maybe your data you collect to 3 decimal numbers, but actually when you look at the data, you saw that okay, these 3 decimal points may not be the best value, so you manipulate at the end there so that it becomes more of a smoother graph. So that's common lah. So plagiarism, we have a special topic on that. I will show you. We have more further discussion on that later. So this is actually very common. If people don't understand the rule, and we have seen papers being retracted because of plagiarism cases. It's actually quite common in the publication world. The other one is sabotage. So this one personally, I have an experience actually. So I had works been done in the lab where I keep my samples in tubes, and because my friend was not very happy with my progress, I was doing very well. So at one day he actually added some unwanted sample into my samples. So sadly the results were haywire. So we got to know from some recordings that we saw in the lab. So he didn't realize that there was recordings. So there is possibility of sabotage. Sometimes it happens. So as I said, results. These are some of the examples of research misconduct that may happen. Okay, that have happened and that may happen. If you want to know more examples of retraction, any research misconduct, especially those that have been published, you can actually go to this website, www.retractionwatch.com. Normally, papers that are being published and there were some issues in the misconduct issues, then the paper will be retracted. Okay, the editor itself normally will retract the paper. If there is a complaint or something, they will investigate, and they found that if it's found to be true, the paper will be retracted. And this retractionwatch.com actually does research on research misconduct and especially on retraction papers. So retracted papers. So they will they show this in the website. So you can actually search for papers that are retracted in this website. Actually, there's a database for that. The other one is collaboration issues. Okay, this is the second point that normally happen in research misconduct. So these actually arise from research ethical issues that come from collaborative work. It can be in the form of authorship. Okay, it can be in the form of intellectual property. Sometimes data quality, the inconsistency of data collection. Okay, because of if you are in India, you collect your data your way, and then you did not follow the standard protocol that's been shared around, because you want to ease the data collection process. So that may create some issue. Or for example, we have an international paper, and it most of the time it happens for papers that are collaborative work, multiple authors. So we have one paper that I recently published. This is a paper I published this year, and there was some miscommunication with one of the photos. So we had to communicate with the editor to replace the photo. Okay, so what happened was the photo did not belong to us, so we replaced the photo. So some replacement, sometimes like this minor things, the editor will accept. So you can change the photos, and then there is a small text there stating that there's a retraction case. Not retraction that means changes into the document. But if it is a very serious case, that normally they will retract the paper. Okay. So of course, all this can be avoided if the authors have discussed things clearly prior to prior to the start of the research. Okay, that's why nowadays we encourage signing of MOU or MOA. Okay, memorandum of understanding, to actually state who are the authors, who are the researchers, what are the outcomes, how the outcomes and the data will be shared, intellectual property sharing. So that one can resolve quite a number of issues. Okay, I mean the legal document. Many of the situation of journals, because when we work with many people, there will be authorship issues. Hence, there's always argument in the academic world about authorship credit. Who deserves to be authors, who does not. Most journals already define this in their scope, in their author guidelines. Okay, so most journals, especially reputable journals, definitely will define their in their author guidelines. Okay, and I give you an example. This is one recent paper by my friends. You can see there's a lot of authors are coming from many countries and many places and many institutions. So nowadays, in many reputable journals, they will ask you to state what is the role of each author. So this actually reduces issues of authorship credit. So authors that have done significant amount of work, okay, that then will be warrant to have an authorship in the paper. Okay. But what about data ownership? Okay. To sort this out, normally project leader must clearly define data ownership in the research team. So general questions to address this includes who owns the data. Okay, it can be your funder. Okay, for example, here, if you've been funded by many grants, okay, most international grants, they will ask for photos or videos, and they will ask for what we say release form that there is no conflicting interest for the photos or videos that is shared. Okay, so the ownership there is must be clearly defined. And then who can make use of the data? Is it just the principal investigator, the project leader, or the postgrad that's been assigned to do the work, or the collaborators? These are normally you really have to address, because at the end, later, sometimes you may cause conflict in the group. So to prevent this, this is where the project leader role must clearly define all this. So who records and keeps and manages the data within and outside of the lab? Because some data cannot be shared outside, cannot be brought out of the lab. Okay, so for example, biosafety regulations does not allow data to be moved out of the lab, especially data that involve organisms that have zoonotic potential. So that is a possibility. So there's always a very clear chain of command of who can do what in such a lab. So, and then of course there is a chain of command for the reporting on data collection and storage. So this is actually very important, data ownership. So it will actually resolve many issues. For example, if you're working with a highly pathogenic organism, okay, and one tube of the pathogen gone missing, and that's where you need to keep track. You need to track back where and who is the chain of command, who is allowed to bring out. So these are the situations that need to be ensured for safety and for many reasons, but most of the time for safety. There's another possibility of research misconduct that is quite commonly happen actually in many it's unintentional. Actually, it's unintentional. Sometimes it's because of the innocence of certain mentors in handling certain review processes. Okay, for example, here we do see that supervisors sometimes give okay give 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 the student to review manuscripts assigned to him or her. Okay, so as a supervisor, he gave somebody, a journal actually approached him to review a paper, so he gave that paper to his student to review. Okay, to actually, most of the time is to actually build up his experience. But that is actually a form of research misconduct, because the review process should be done by the person that's been appointed. So one way to actually resolve this is actually to write to the editor to actually appoint the student to review the paper. But that may not be favorable by the editor, because the editor approached the supervisor to review the paper. So another way is to actually sit side by side with the student and review the paper together, okay, as a form of discussion. But the understanding is that the student cannot reveal any content in that paper to the public. Okay, so it's not the best way, but sometimes the onus of giving some experience to the student is also important. So that's the learning process. So there are many ways, but yeah, this is some of the examples okay. Another situation that may happen, the reviewer, okay, most of the time the reviewer will be appointed based on his or her expertise in certain field of knowledge. Okay, so if the reviewer is actually doing a competing research with the paper the manuscript with the manuscript that's been submitted, then there may be a conflict of interest. So can the reviewer utilize the knowledge from a manuscript for his or her work? Actually cannot, because they have to ask permission. Okay, but because the whole review process is actually anonymous. Okay, so the reviewer has to wait for the paper to be published before utilizing the knowledge. But the other way is actually uh, if the reviewers feel that this paper is it has a competing interest with him, he or she can actually opt to not review the paper. There is the what we say the the decision of not reviewing the paper because of a conflict of interest. There is possibility. So, but what about the authors? What are the legal protections offered to the authors during manuscript reviewing? Okay. Oh, sorry, there's a word mistake here. During the manuscript revision, actually, legally, it's actually very hard to have legal protection. But if the author actually uh, in certain discoveries been patented, then maybe there is some legal protection. But most of the time, if the author does not realize that most of the time they won't realize actually that their work has been infringed upon. So that is also an issue. But it's if they find these instances, then they can actually always write to the chief editor to inform this situation that the reviewer actually violated the has done a research misconduct, and then the editor will normally have their own procedures to actually investigate and make up some form of punishment to the reviewer. There's also points of a conflict of interest. For example, okay, this actually previously have happened before. Okay, during the times where there was a gradual objection of tobacco companies funding research on tobacco impact. So there were situations where tobacco company offering researchers funding to study the benefits of tobacco. That has happened before. Hence, that is actually a conflict of interest because you are supposed to be objective in your research findings. Okay, when you report your research findings, it should be objective. You cannot actually cite to the tobacco company. So when you get funding to study tobacco effects, okay, so in essence, you are actually having some form of conflict of interest. Okay, nowadays such a work happen in Southeast Asia is oil palm plantation. People who study oil palm plantation effects and deforestation normally are be funded by the bigger companies. So there is probably an issue in terms of conflict of interest in this kind of research. Okay. The other type of conflict interest include paying a third party to draft your research report or thesis or paper. And this third party is not affiliated with the research. So meaning you're paying somebody else to write your report. Okay, and they are not involved in the research. So that's a conflict of interest. Okay. The other one is actually reviewing a competitor or collaborator's research grant, manuscript, or report without being objective. Most established researchers, if they get a competitors or a collaborator's research grant or manuscript or report, they will decide whether to continue or not to continue. If they continue to review, they will actually declare this person is actually having a collaboration with me, or if this person is this person is competition to his work, he has to declare. And if he declares, then the review as the review committee will at least know that he or she is having this conflict with this issue, this situation where they are reviewing their competitor or collaborators grant or manuscript, or the reviewer can actually opt to abstain from reviewing the grant or manuscript. This is always an option. Okay. So there's also complexity and funding. If you are working on research that in the beginning is already having some complicated issues. For example, stem cell research has always been an issue. How the source of the stem cell, this has always been an issue, and we have seen research, very high impact research papers have been retracted because of the research misconduct. Normally because of these kind of situations. There's also biopiracy. Biopiracy is actually quite common nowadays, and it's being an issue. And there are instances where, for example, in Malaysia, there were people who bring out certain samples from the country without proper documentation or proper approval, and then describing new species from these samples in their own country. So the authorities actually wrote to the journal that published their findings to actually retract the paper. And there are some journals that actually do retract the paper because of that. There are also some journals that do not do this kind of retraction, but when that journal does this kind of things, there's a reputation, and many scientists actually avoid publishing this kind of areas, this kind of journals, because of the reputation involved. Okay, you don't want your reputation as a stellar scientist being smeared by this kind of publishing house. So biopiracy is not only in Malaysia. I think in India also quite common. Yes, I saw Priyanka raise your hand. So you have a question, you may ask. Okay, we will continue later. Okay, you can ask a question later also. Animal subject research is also, and human subject research is also two things that we need to look at, because many research that involve animal usage requires animal care and use ethic committee approval during journal publication submission. So if you don't have that committee approval, then journals will not even actually consider to review your papers. So if you are in the veterinary science, this is the first thing they will ask: where is the animal ethic committee approval? If you don't have that, they won't even review your paper. They won't consider even review your paper. Okay, so for institutions that do not have such animal care and use ethic committee, it's always you can always get appoint people outside from another institution to actually review your proposals, or you can set up your own. Okay, UMK has experience doing so. I'm actually the head for the animal care and use ethic committee in my university. So if you need experience, if you need guidance in setting up your own, I can always assist. So you just drop me a call or anything. Okay, so the idea, it's animal care use and use ethic committee is generally guided by three principles. Refine. So you refine the experiments. You use methods that cause less pain and distress. Okay. For example, if you are going to euthanize a fish, okay, a fish. How do you euthanize a fish so that it has less pain and distress? So there are previously used methods, commonly used methods, and there are more newer methods being proposed. Normally we always keep track of this kind of new findings, so that will help with the decision making in the animal care and use ethic committee. We also would propose a reduction of number of animals used. If you want to use 5, you can choose to opt to use 3, as long as the data is robust and sound, properly collected. There's also a choice of replacing higher order animals with lower order animals, okay, because of the difference in the degree in suffering and distress. For humans research, can we use humans subjects in research? Yes, okay, but there is a very strict rule in governing the use of human subjects in research. Okay, so it's a very lengthy code. You can actually, but the basis of the code, actually I think all countries now have it because of the COVID vaccination, trial and testing. So all countries have their own human subjects research code. Okay, and the principle behind it was actually from the Nuremberg Code. So Nuremberg Code is available online. You can just search for it. And this was the first code that serves as the basis of many guidelines and ethics for human subjects in research. So you can actually go search for Nuremberg Code. So let's look at plagiarism. So what is plagiarism? Plagiarism is basically using someone's idea, process, result, or word without giving appropriate credit. So meaning you don't say that he or she is the one that, or the idea originates or the sentence originates from that person's work. Okay, it is actually an intellectual theft. Okay, it can happen in writing, in a publication, or in the publication or journal or book. It can also happen verbally, meaning during talks, or you use people's idea without properly acknowledging them. So plagiarism is basically the deliberate misrepresentation of another's writing or idea as his or her own. So you are using somebody else's idea, but you are claiming it as your own. You can also reproduce another works as your own. Meaning you take directly, okay, from what they have written and use it as your own, and you fail to acknowledge someone else's idea in your work. Okay. So it can also happen in such a way that you use materials without indicating where the material is found. Okay. So there are many factors that contribute to plagiarism. So the common one is actually pressure to publish, because the rush, you need to publish a certain number of papers per year, and that is the situation. And then lack of training. If you did not have proper training in how to write scientific articles or journal publications, there is a possibility of you contributing, doing plagiarism. Because most journals nowadays require to write in English. Okay, and we all know that English is not always the mother tongue of many people in the world. So there is a situation where there is English as a possible cause of such a situation. Hence, in certain countries, they actually have their journals written in their own language. For example, in Japan, many of their works are actually published in Japanese. Or in Korea also, similarly in Korea, they publish everything in Korea. So there's no issues of plagiarism lah. Okay, the occurrence is lesser because they are writing in their own language. So similar, if you are in India, in Malaysia, we do have journals that write in Malay, but the issue is These kind of journals don't get the what we say, they don't have high impact factor. So that is one issue that need to be resolved. So there's also attitudes. Some people are more strict on plagiarism. Some people are more relaxed towards it. So this influence, this actually contributes to plagiarism occurrence. So how do you avoid plagiarism? So you just need to cite all quotations. You can paraphrase with citations. Okay, you can, if you're writing a long text, it's better to actually place the citation at the end rather than place it in the beginning, because you don't want to, you don't want to give an impression that the earlier sentence is actually, with the citation, is actually the one that is cited, but the remaining text will not. Okay, so there's also, it's best to actually cite experts and not your friend. But what if your friend is actually the expert? So that is allowed. You are actually allowed to cite anyone as long as your citation is actually a reputable work. So you must actually read the work being done and evaluate yourself whether this experiment or this finding is properly justified. There's also instances where people rushing to have more publications, so they submit one paper to multiple journals. This has happened before. In fact, as a editor in one of the Scopus Index journal in Malaysia, I have actually caught several authors doing that, and we do report. And sadly to say, the author was banned from publishing in our journal. I don't know. The ban was fixed. That means there's no reprieve. So there's no way that author can submit their papers again to our journal. So it's best to not submit one paper to multiple journals. The trick is to actually find journals that have more issues per year. That will help with the speed of the publication. If you're finding a journal that comes out with one single issue per year, then it's going to be very slow. If you're finding one that has 12 issues per year or 6 issues per year, that will speed up the publication. So that is one way to actually avoid this situation. So how do we paraphrase? So basically, many people actually misinterpret paraphrase and citing. Citing is actually a whole another term. So basically, when you paraphrase, you rewrite the statement, okay, from a source using your own words. So what you do, basically, you will actually write a statement based on the text that you have read, but using your own words. So when do you paraphrase? You paraphrase when there is a need to discuss details from the source. Okay. You can also paraphrase when you want to simplify the sentence from the original text to assist in comprehension. So sometimes the jargon is more complex. So you want to simplify so that other people can easily understand what was the text, the gist of the text. You can actually paraphrase. Okay. So how do you paraphrase? It's very simple actually. First, you read the source content very thoroughly. Okay, meaning you don't just read the single paragraph. You need to read the whole section. Okay, best is to read the whole paper, because if you read one section and you missed out another section, you might misinterpret the whole text, the whole meaning of that paragraph. So it's best to actually read the whole thing. So we have an example recently. Minister, the minister read a journal publication. Okay, minister, politicians read a paper on deforestation and its link to the increase in mouse deer in the forest. So and then he quoted that single source that states that when the mouse when they do selective logging, the mouse deer population will increase because there's an increase in the number of grass. Okay, the grass will grow. So if there is an increase of mouse deer, he further interpret that there's an increase of mouse deer, then there's an increase of tigers because of the number of mouse deer, the food source has been increased. So that 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 conclusion, it was actually skewed because he did not read the further text actually. The further text states that the tiger, okay, to increase the the population of tigers, intact forest is actually required because the behavior of the tiger, okay, is more complex than just, the requirements of a habitat of a tiger is more complex. It's not just, having more prey, then the population can increase. There's much more things to consider. So that's why I say you need to read the whole text so that you can have a better picture, and then only you write you paraphrase properly lah. Okay, so when you paraphrase, when you're writing your text, you just need to use your own words. It does not have to be a very strong and bombastic English language. You just need to paraphrase it to the easiest way that you can understand, and the readers can understand. And then after you write your own words, you have to look at the original text and compare with your own. Does it have quite a number of repetitive sentences? If there is none, then you are safe. And then at the end, you put the original author as a citation. Okay. Different with paraphrasing, you can actually quote, and this is actually quite common in social science. They quote social science and arts, they quote the whole text because of the they want the readers to actually use to actually get the source directly. So they quote the whole text, like a full paragraph sometimes. So that is quite common in social science, okay, and arts, okay. So you direct use of a content exactly as they appear in the source, and then you add a punctuation at the front and the end, okay. So you quote when your ideas are better supported via quoting compared to paraphrasing. So maybe when you paraphrase, some of the information might be missing, might be lost in translation. So it's better to actually quote than paraphrase. Okay. So quoting is very simple. You need to understand the whole text. Okay. And so you need to read and comprehend the whole text properly. And then you copy exactly the text that need to be quoted. You place a double quotation mark in front and behind, and then you include a citation. And you need to actually include at least one explanation for the quoted material. So, but then you want to keep it at a minimum because you also want to include your ideas, right, in the publication that you're writing. So this is another tip for quotation. So behavior wise, okay, this is also another thing that we have to look at. Okay, so it is actually the duty of the project leader or the mentor to instill proper values in their team. As a leader of a team of 3 postgrads and another 7 more research members, I actually have to ensure that they are clear on what they can and cannot do. So I always, inform them and share them, issues on scientific misconduct. Okay, so it is the duty of the mentor or the head of department to instill proper values. Mentors or head of departments must always brief their team members on responsible conduct of research, because this is important, okay. And also as the mentor or the leader, okay, a positive role is always important. So you must always project yourself in the right way. You can't say something and then you do something otherwise. So that is you can say it, but if you don't practice it, your team members also will not follow what we are saying. Okay. And it's very important that every team member's role are clearly defined, because this will determine the job that they're doing. Yeah, the research assistantship or not, the authorship. Okay, the role, the arrangement of authorship will also be affected. Okay, and consultation and job scope. It's not very important. The other thing is actually, if you're working with people, you pick the right people. You pick the right people who have scientific integrity. If you're working with people that are relaxed in this kind of things, you are bound to face a situation that you yourself would actually break the rule. Okay, so some of the common things that actually happen now, as I say, biopiracy and helicopter science. Helicopter science means a scientist from a more developed or more well-funded organization, okay, utilizes people from a lower income group or lower income research institution to collect certain samples or data, and then with the minor role, without any proper training or transfer of technology, okay, give them authorship. So then at the end of the day, what you will see is the situation where people from these smaller institutions don't get the proper training that they are needed, but yet the authority, the authority of that science or that knowledge, body of knowledge, it belongs to someone else in another country. So if you are a scientist in your country, you should be leading the field of science related to certain things in your country. If you're working on a certain organism, you should be the expert should come from the country, not from somebody else. But helicopter science is the one that actually promotes this kind of things. Okay, that means the authority is actually outside of the country, not within the country. It's also important that the head of department or the leader actually attend and encourage his members or her members to actually attend training for awareness on types of scientific misconduct. So thank you for those who attend. Okay, it's good for you actually so that you are aware of this kind of things. As a project leader, you must always check for plagiarism. In any documents that have been sent to you, either it's a manuscript or a report, it's always good to check for plagiarism, because that's your duty. Because once the document is been delivered to the journal or to the reporting agency, then you can't retract back. So if anything, if they detect any plagiarism, then your head is on the chopping block. So it's important that actually the project leader actually check for plagiarism. Okay, and the plagiarism softwares are all freely available online. It's very simple. You just go online, you just type, plagiarism check. You will get, softwares that you can help you with this kind of checking. Okay, so there's a software, so you can have a look at it. So how to detect plagiarism? Before softwares were around, okay, most mentors, even I think many years ago, I was checking quite a number of bachelor students, bachelor thesis, and whenever we check the format, the citation styles, the quotations are in this situation wrong formatting, inconsistent citation styles, lack of quotations. It's actually a signal that the student actually plagiarized. So if you've done enough reading in that field of expert, in that field of science, you will know, okay, this sentence coming from which journal. So sometimes even before I do plagiarism check, I actually know my students whether they have done something like that or not. So most of my students, I actually train them. I train them from the beginning and to actually write using their own sentences, because it's very beneficial to them. my team, my postgraduate team, all of them actually have their own scholarship and research grant because they learn from the beginning how to secure all these kind of important things. It will be very good for their career. Okay, imagine when you graduated from your degree or a master's degree, you can write your own research papers. You can actually secure research grant from the training that you get during your postgraduate studies. That is a very much added advantage. So I actually during my PhD, I actually secured my own funding for my own works. Okay. So within institution, you can adopt zero tolerance for plagiarism, protect whistleblowers. You must protect whistleblowers. This is one thing that's very lacking in many institutions. You have to clarify how to report this to all your team members, and you have to train the mentors. And you must, as a leader, you must show the ethical behavior. So I guess that ends my talk. I think I overshoot quite 15 minutes or something like that. So thank you for your attention. If you have any question, you can ask now, and then we can I can address anybody's questions. So these are some of the talks that I've given previously. So thank you. Prof. Bala also here. Okay. So maybe we'll pass the floor to the MC or ni. I think Mazlan, Dr. Mazlan, are you here? Okay.
Available.
So the MC.
I'm here, Doctor.
So Dr. Mazlan is my close collaborator as well. We work very much in many subjects. So he's the next speaker. Yeah.
So anybody has any queries to ask? No. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your presentation on research integrity, ethics, and anti-plagiarism rules. It was very informative for us. Thank you very much, sir, for joining in today.
You're welcome.